Hey friend, Megan here. Wanted to give you a little update on our jungle move adventure. We've been here in the cloud forest for about a month and a half, and we're finally starting to feel like it's home. As you can see, I am working outside, and I've got the jungle just surrounding me in 360 degrees. There's the river on one side that's a little farther below, and there's limes, lemons, citrus fruit of all kinds, like 10 banana trees, 8 mango trees, and just like a huge variety of medicinal plants and things like that just surrounding me. It is one of the most quiet and lush places I have ever lived in my life, and it's just got a beauty that I can't even possibly describe. At some point I will get some pictures and be able to do some edited clips of things going together. Eric is starting to put together little montages of beautiful things growing here and things that we're discovering. So the boys are absolutely thrilled. They are climbing trees and picking fruit every single day. They're finding there's this amazing tree called pakai, which is like this ice cream bean fluffy seed that's covered in this like white fluffy fruit, in these huge long pods in one of the most beautiful trees I've ever seen. So the boys have fallen in love with the jungle. They are running around in the funniest little spandex outfits that I had made, because it is hot here and it is buggy. So when we did multiple years of visits, we kind of figured out clothes that would work, that would keep people cool, would dry fast during rainy season and with sweating, and would keep the bugs off. So like I'm in almost always like some form of like kimono and like really like loose fitting, lightweight pants that cover my ankles and cover my arms because there are just a lot of biting bugs, mosquitoes, biting flies, and things of that nature. The one nice thing that I'll say is that it's not absolutely everywhere. They're usually just certain parts of the day after rain, below the fruit trees. And as long as you keep your sitting spaces really kind of clean and not sticky and not sugary or have any kind of food, the bugs just stay away from it. So I call them my little safe zones when I start to feel a little overwhelmed as I'm walking through, and you'll get a bite and it'll kind of sting and burn. I'll sort of retreat to my little safe spaces. And I will do a little post about mosquitoes because I've learned a lot about them and how they actually support body work and actually bite on specific meridians and certain blockages, which has been kind of amazing. So I do think that they're really healing, and I've actually seen it firsthand, but that'll be another kind of in-depth thing. But yeah, the bugs they're hard. I would say seeing my boys' faces sort of puff up and have little blood streaks is rough, but the hardest part would probably be at nights when they're waking up scratching. But we do have this kind of like sulfur and witch hazel cream, along with aloe, that are amazing at taking the sting away and helping them heal super fast. So these bites can last for like 2 weeks and really, really itch. But if you hit them with the aloe and the sulfur witch hazel cream, they go away in like seconds. So glad we figured that one out before we moved out here, because I think it would be borderline maddening if we hadn't figured that kind of system out. But yeah, the boys are running around in full spandex outfits and just thrilled to be alive. And Alex just did a treasure map where they like made a sack of flowers, and then they made a treasure map, buried it, dug the hole together right by this like really beautiful little bridge, and had me follow the map and dig out my treasure and then leave it for Daddy to find the next time. So it's really cool to see how the kids are playing and how their energy has just like reset completely. We are outside probably 90% of the day, if not more. There might be a couple hours indoors during the heat of the day when Julian is napping, where we'll do some like educational screen time and some like homeschooling stuff. We are homeschooling our 3 boys, and they're 6, 5, and 2.5. So we do a lot of like drawing exercises and writing exercises and math and things like that. But we're always problem solving and explaining things as we go. But I can get into our theories and our practices of homeschooling as well at some point. But yeah, we are finally settling in. I would say one of the things I've learned with sort of doing a major life change is that there's so much buildup and there's so much excitement and there's so much to look forward to, but there's also this like really important settling in time and transition time, as we call them, where you just kind of find your new rhythms and your new routines and like sort of set intentions on how you want things to be. And I would also say that it's this time that a lot of our old patterns get kicked up and a lot of our old like triggers and traumas and discomforts start to kind of surface. So the last month and a half has been really intense for our family as we're kind of finding our new rhythm here and figuring out what our schedule is and figuring out how to work with the like heat and the bugs kind of in our schedule, like what hours work really well for Eric to be outside doing building projects, which hours work really well for me to do content and things like that. But yeah, it's been layers and layers of doing work together as a couple, each individually with our family, and then with our dear friend who came and lived with us during the transition, who he just left to go back to the Valley for a while. It was just a lot of like new changes. So I would say anytime people are going through a transition or a big life change, there's all of this expectation, and that sometimes we don't realize that there's going to be some really hard kind of rocky moments and kind of feeling like you're bottoming out or like going back to places that you haven't or seen in a long time. So because Eric and I have done it a few times, like I picked up my life from Pennsylvania, moved to California, I went and lived in Spain for a little bit, I moved back to do travel, and then we moved to Peru. So I feel like at this point we kind of have an idea that when these kind of hiccups and triggers start to come up, we're a lot more aware of them and have a lot more tools to kind of support ourselves through those uncomfortable growth periods. So that's really what we've been working on for the last month and a half. And then on top of that, there's been just like really kind of practical discomforts and things that we're figuring out. So like one of them is that in the jungle there is so much water. We're in the middle of rainy season, so it's raining probably every day, definitely every night, sometimes torrential, sometimes like a really nice little mist. I personally really like it, but I do know that it can be hard for people to have that much rain. As you can see, it's like super sunny now, and like the light is just catching all of the different colors of green and all of the flowers, so it's so beautiful. But it is extra buggy during rainy season, and then one of the big things is that the water pressure is super inconsistent. So we are in a developing nation, like an hour away from a major city in the middle of the jungle, so there's not like easy access to parts, and there's not easy access to things to fix stuff. The other thing is a lot of times it's not particularly well thought out or strategic, and so it's kind of trying to unwind how things are built and put together, and it's got its discomfort. So for example, the piping probably floods or busts or like just starts spraying out from not very secure hoses and pipes maybe once a week now. So we've been without hot water for 3 weeks, and that you would think, okay, you're in the hot jungle, it's not that big of a deal, but it's definitely a cold shower, which can be delightfully refreshing, kind of takes your breath away, but doesn't make you really want to jump in the shower all the time. So I have been feeling a bit sticky and greasy and like talking myself into getting into the shower, but the pipes do bust. So Eric luckily is like just this incredible problem solver and fixer of things. So he did figure out a way to create a pressurized pipe plumbing system that the guys here weren't aware of. So that has help. They're still working on finding where all of the pipes connect and things like that, so it's not fully fixed. I did have a really nice, cool shower, but I've been figuring out a way to do it that I can stand it. The other thing is that my boys really dislike it, so it's either kind of going back to boiling pots of water, even though there's these incredible hot water tanks, or the boys just get sponge baths. So it's been tricky. So I would say the biggest challenges here are the water pressure and the bugs, and those are really specific to rainy season. But overall, it's been delightful. The thing that I think I love the most here, that could be an issue for a lot of people, is that we just love all of the life that we're discovering. Like, every day we're seeing new butterflies, we're seeing dragonflies of so many different colors, we're seeing I'm working in this kind of Maloca pergola, outdoor covered thatched roof, as you can see, and I've had a lizard this big, not once but twice, just drop down on my desk and surprise me. The boys are loving discovering all of the new spiders and bugs. They'll bring them to me, super excited, and so it's been really cool to see all of the new life and learn about it. The other thing that's amazing here is that there's so much community that's already been built up through the eco project that we're staying with. So I will get a little bit more into that because it's such a cool project. But we are having like community lunches and people just popping by and kids running in. So the boys are meeting lots of new kids. And we will have a beautiful fire roasted duck with yuca and lentils, and everybody kind of comes together and cooks and cleans up and brings gifts. We've gotten lots of bananas and different fruit from the neighbors, and we'll bring things to them. We made some desserts for some people. So it's been amazing to see sort of the possibilities of how much more connected we feel out here, even though we really sort of are in the middle of nowhere. So that's been just wonderful. And then the eco project I'll get into a little bit, that basically there's a university, PUCP. It's a Catholic university in Lima. It's a really good university. They have funded a project over the course of, I want to say, 20 or 30 years with two brothers, one who recently passed and one of their students who moved out here. And so I'll talk about Sergio from time to time, and that's the guy who's sort of the manager and living here on site at the project. So the project is that they are a lot of engineers that are working to do kind of appropriate technology that will help people with their day-to-day life stuff. So they have some water wheels going that can generate electricity. They have some they have spring-fed pools. There's like a wood-fired hot tub. They're working on a geodome for seeds. They've got some dehydrators built. So it is super cool to see the projects they have. The other thing that they really wanted to show on this land was the variety of plants that are growing. So a lot of people, I think I mentioned this in the last video, a lot of people have kind of forgotten how much can grow in the soil, which is really everything. And people kind of focus on yucca, or they focus on certain kinds of citrus fruit or coffee or tea, but really absolutely anything that you put in the ground will grow. The big thing is to figure out how to deal with the biting ants and the leaf cutter ants and some of the little mole type animals. I'll have to look into what they're called, but that one's a tricky one. The other thing is, like, everybody here has chickens and ducks. You'll see them running around in the back of my videos, and nobody is doing kind of pen systems, so they're losing all of their eggs. So they're pretty much just growing them to eat the meat, but they're losing a ton of eggs. So we're kind of working with Sergio to figure out, there's a chicken tractor design that I'm sure my husband will be showing in a future video, that you can still have them free-ranging, relatively free-ranging, but their coop is on wheels, so they can kind of be mowing the grass and picking through the compost and be moving around, but you're not losing the eggs, and you're also not losing them to hawks or other kind of animals that might eat chickens. So we're hoping that we can sort of help out with some ideas and things like that. because I know people lose a lot of chicken stalks. There are these huge hawks that fly above, hawks and vultures, and they're beautiful. But it is an issue for people, and it will save them a lot of money, especially if they're taking care of so many chickens. So we are excited to be working with them and live here, and also have just the benefit of them building a project for 30 years and already having a complete solar electricity setup, a complete Wi-Fi setup, a spring-fed pool, like I said, an entire workshop for Eric with a lot of tools that certainly need some fixing. But we just feel so lucky to have found this. We actually became friends a couple years ago when I was coming out for visits, and I saw there was an ecological project, so I reached out to get to know them, and they were just lovely and wonderful. And when we found the place, it just turns out that we were moving next door to them. All synchronicity, all just incredible luck, and they gave us a place to stay. So I will talk a little bit about our living arrangement, which I think for a Western mentality would be like, oh my gosh, you guys are crazy. For Peruvians, it's still living pretty high luxury and not a surprising way to live at all, but there's a big cultural difference that even I'm still getting used to. But we have what we have over on our land, it's not our land. We are renting it right now, and we're looking at other properties, including that one, to buy. But because we wanted to just get out in the area and not be back and forth from the valley 3 hours there and back every time with family and dogs to think about, and just the expense and the time out, we did just want to get here. So we're living in this incredible woman's family's land, and they had a little tiny adobe structure with a tin roof, and a little like outdoor sink, and not so far off from like campesino, like Peruvian living. Certainly, I won't say it's like typical, but it's not like a surprising living environment, but it is, the walls don't go up to the roof, and there's just open air going through the windows. There are window structures, but there's no like screens or glass or anything like that. There's no plumbing for a kitchen inside. A lot of times people cook outside, and we're still trying to figure out the plumbing situation over there. So we did get the compost toilet set up, which is great. That'll be done today. We have like a temporary structure for the dogs, so they're not running into all the neighbors' land and eating chickens. We want to make sure that they're well trained and well adjusted before we kind of leave them loose. But Ted's already running around, and he's loving it. So is Chasky Puppy, one of our kind of white shepherd dog. So we are going to be living over there, but while we're figuring out plumbing and a kitchen, and also the 1-bedroom situation, like maybe doing a loft for the boys to sleep and a downstairs area for us, there is a lot of building, and we are in the middle of rainy season where it's hard to find the supplies. We also had a lot of money saved up, but with our sick baby and the delays, we're kind of rebuilding that before we can start the building project. So we are, like I said, getting some of the plumbing fixed up, getting the compost potties fixed up, and the next thing is that we're going to do an outdoor patio because of how small the house is. Having an outdoor space to eat and play is going to be really, really important for our sort of family balance. So those are our next priorities, on top of just kind of helping out here on the eco project and fixing things up and stuff. So while we're working on the house, we have a 1-bedroom with a little outdoor bathroom with a shower here at Sergio's place, the ecological project. So we are all sleeping in one thing. There's like a slide out bed, there's a bunk bed, there's like a little couch, and then we've just got a wall of kind of all of our belongings that we're living with. So most of our stuff is in really long-term storage. We've got a few things over at the house, like our appliances and things that we're going to be using. So it's pretty wild, but the amazingly lucky thing is that the ecological project is like a 5 to 10 minute walk straight through. I keep pointing that way because it's literally down that path, straight through the path, and that's where you hit our little house. So it's been quite a transition on knowing where our stuff is, figuring out what we really need on a day-to-day basis, not having hot water, and sort of just easing into the rhythms of being here. So we really want to just develop friendships, relationships, learn as much as we can about the land and the plants, and get to know the neighbors, as well as just figure out how we are going to work, how we are going to split our time to work on projects, how we are going to set those homeschooling schedules. And it's been quite an adventure, but we finally kind of feel like we are catching our breath, I guess you could say, and settling into the beauty and the rhythm, the slowness here. The other thing that I'll mention is that we are just on the other side of Machu Picchu. So a lot of people asked us about the Machu Picchu floods. There were floods a few weeks back, almost as soon as we got here. Massive floods that took out the train station and the train tracks for Machu Picchu, and it was closed down for like a week and a half to fix. So we are on the other side of the mountain. So we're not right at the base of Machu Picchu, we're just on the other side of the mountain. And we're about 2.5, 3 hours away from Ollantaytambo, which is like right next door to Urubamba. So we are here at the base of like one of the most sacred and like energetically strong mountains that I have ever felt. So I used to tell people when they would come into the valley, because we'd been there for so long, 8 or 9 years, we had hosted so many people, and we had made friends with lots of people in the community, that the valley is a really special place. It sort of calls out to people. People will start dreaming about it, or think like, I want to end up in Peru. I think I'm supposed to go to this valley. So when you're in the valley, it was the ancient story of it that we learned from the Queros, the Peruvian elders, and wisdom keepers that we've been so lucky to work with, that they actually said that the pilgrimage to Machu Picchu, it wasn't just like an in and out trip. It wasn't like go take a selfie, post it on social media, say I did Machu Picchu. And it was this spiritual pilgrimage that you would start at Puno, and you would travel through the valley, and you would enter in through this pass and enter into Machu Picchu. And you kind of weren't able to pass until you had sort of left things behind, old patterns, identities, and you would go through this incredible growth process. So when we were in the valley, I mean, we saw over and over again where the valley would have these funny, synchronistic, really magical things that would happen, somebody would come with an idea of who they were, an idea of what they were going to do when they got there, and somehow all of it would fall apart, like within days of their arrival. And we would kind of tell people, like, listen, you can fight it, you can be pissed it didn't work out the way that you wanted, or you can kind of drop that thing, say, all right, what's my real purpose here? How do I want to experience this place and the purpose of why I'm here? And a lot of time, I mean, every time we would see people like let go and be like, all right, Peru, Valley, universe, show me why I'm here. And they would just start to see this unfolding of really incredible, synchronistic, magical things, and go through a really profound growth process and leave feeling brighter and happier and more inspired and healthier. And it was so amazing to see how that valley had like held people in this life transition, because so many people would end up there being like, I lost my job, or I'm right out of school, or things weren't right in my life and I'm doing some searching to see who I am again. And we'd see it over and over, and the valley would just hold people in this very intense shakeup of everything that they thought they knew. So we would kind of, observe people through that process, and also support people through that process if we felt, we could, or we were there. So we've experienced that incredible like magic and also intensity of just like almost nonstop personal growth. It feels very ass-kicking. It feels very intense, and like, I laugh, like, I'm like, who am I? Like, what are we doing here? And you just end up peeling back all the layers of who you thought you were, and finding a newfound strength and foundation and something a lot deeper. So until you've sort of lived that experience, it is hard to describe. But I wanted to share that from the valley and like the history of what we've experienced here, but also share that it felt like landing here, where the energy of Machu Picchu is that much stronger. I mean, it has just been intense. Like, I was trying to explain it to someone that it's like this place is a whisper. There's just this quiet evenness, but there's just this powerful energy sort of pulsing through, just stripping away any last layers, bringing up any old patterns, bringing up any fears, any insecurities, any old things that you've catch yourself doing. But this time we did feel like we had a lot more observation and tools and support. But I was not. I mean, I was sort of seeing it coming, but I can say I wasn't expecting it to be that sort of intense. And I could see it. It was just hitting every single person that we were here with. And then anybody that was coming in and visiting from another place, we would see them just kind of get laid flat for a week, or just be fighting the elements or whatever discomforts would come up for them, and then sort of lift out of it with a little bit more perspective and learning and experience. So it's a really magical and beautiful place. I am so grateful for it. I'm so excited to see kind of what we're going to be creating. It's hard to explain how slow things move here culturally, as a rhythm. Like, we've just been finding one little part will take just weeks and weeks, and it might come and it might not come. Or there's things like, we've got 2 internet lines for the eco project, and then we've got 2 routers for our personal use up at the little, I won't say house, up at the room. And like, if it rains too hard, they just stop working, and you just have absolutely no access to anyone on the internet. So we have already practiced that. We actually lived without internet in our house for 6 years, which was crazy, while we ran a guest home. Really awesome. Like, totally helped us kind of cut the addictions to media, to social media, and to, scrolling, and really find ourselves here and now in our own place, our own reality, like in our own lives, rather than this access channel through screens and pixels and stuff like that. So we really purposely put that into our life to sort of challenge ourselves and come back to what's important and real. And I will say, we started hearing our intuition more when we didn't have our calendar or immediate calls. We didn't have iPhones or smartphones for 6-7 years either. When the quarantine hit and pandemia hit, we had like people start gifting us technology, and it was just kind of funny because we got it all set up like weeks before we were on lockdown, which was really great and kind of amazing. But we definitely did not live attached to the internet, and we do that very, very intentionally, and we're very happy with those choices. But it is challenging. You have to find a completely different way to work. You kind of have to do more planning, have sort of a list of things that you want to accomplish when you are online, and then be able to just turn it off or walk away, which I love. So I would go into my cafe time, I would work, and then that was it. That was my screen time. And then I would come home, and I'd be home with the boys. I'd be home for myself. We'd be reading books. We'd be having conversations. We'd be hanging out with friends. We'd spend time on self-care and like stretching and things like that. So I will say, I think people ask, like, how do we get so much done, even though it feels really slow and unmoving a lot of times, that I really think it's because we're not just scrolling and Netflixing next away our life. So it is kind of amazing how much you can learn and how much you can accomplish when you do step away from that stuff. And so we don't get all flustered or up in arms when the internet goes down or the plumbing just, pops. It's really, we're kind of used to that already, but I am sharing this, that if people do come to visit us, they are things to kind of mentally prepare for, because they do take a mental transition. They do take a little bit of like letting go and sort of trusting that things will work out okay, and that there are other ways to spend our time, and that it is hard because you do realize how much you distract yourself. There's a word here in Spanish that is diversión, and I think I shared this before. The word for fun is fun in English, well, the word for fun in Spanish is diversión, and that word is diversion. So my question is always, what are we diverting ourselves from when we're having this idea of fun? Like, I think there's totally room in life for fun and pleasure and experience, but I also think that sometimes it can go out of balance, and that we maybe are not facing ourselves or facing the things that we really want, or jumping into the lives that we would like to create, because it's hard and it's scary sometimes, and there's a lot of insecurities that come up. But, you know, rather than going through those things and facing those things, it is easier to just watch somebody else live their life in the form of a show, or, you know, in the form of social media. I think that's kind of what social media is in a lot of ways, watching other people live their lives, or the presentation of how they would like it to be perceived. So it's a wild one to really choose to sort of check out from that and use it more intentionally, because I think the internet and tech is this incredible tool for communication. I mean, like, I am using the YouTubes and the technology to communicate with you, but I just look at it as doing it in balance, doing it with intention, asking myself why, and asking, am I diverting myself from something? So went on a little spin out about technology, but it is a big part of being here, is not being hooked up all the time. Like right now, there is no internet in the house, for example. So yeah, that's our kind of long extended update on living in the cloud forest, in between Ollantaytambo and Quillabamba, and just on the other side of Machu Picchu, and what it's like to sort of just move your entire life and your children and your dogs and figure out those basics of how to feed yourself and how to step into a new rhythm and find out who you are in a new place. It's definitely got its ups and downs and its challenges, but I will say I am at a place where I'm very glad to be here. I was questioning it a couple times this month, but overall, yeah, it's pretty awesome. So there are some people working here on the ecological project, and I did just get a bunch of bites on my face. I am doing a little scratching, but that's what's kind of going on. So that's my little update for the move to the cloud forest, and thanks for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe and like and do all that stuff, because it does support me and get other people to see what it's like to make this big jump. All right, love from Peru. Until next time, bye.